correctly in the right seat for their age and size. Get it right.
Visit nhtsa.gov/the
right seat.
Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
Welcome to Fight for Life, a pro-life radio show discussing the Ministry of First Choice Pregnancy Services here in Las Vegas. I'm Deborah, board member and executive director of First Choice Pregnancy Services.
And I'm Jessica, logistics specialist at First Choice Pregnancy Services.
We are ambassadors for the unborn. Welcome to the show.
Good afternoon, Fight for Life friends. Thanks for joining us today. This is Jess and Celeste. We are your ambassadors on behalf of the unborn babies everywhere, and we're here to share insights and real-life stories of what we've experienced in this fight for life.
We are kicking off our broadcast with a weekly update so you can stay connected to the First Choice Ministry and how many lives are affected by your support. From February 16th to February 23rd of 2023, First Choice provided 60 pregnancy tests and 56 ultrasounds to our clients. The patient we serve are mainly abortion-bound, but we serve women from all walks of life. It is very important to reach them with our free services and speak up for their defenseless child. If you'd like to join the conversation or if you're interested in sponsoring this radio show, call the radio show station at 702-650-5588.
Today's guest is Kelly Quinn. We recently had Kelly on the air with us before the last elections, but I saw him pop back up this week as he went to speak against SB 131. Welcome back, Kelly.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Amen. So can you tell us exactly what SB 131 is?
It's a bill which allows more abortions and practitioners from other states coming here. It really does several different things, if you want to get into it right now or not. But
yeah.
It allows for reciprocity of providers coming to the state of Nevada with very little oversight and vetting of them to come here. It restricts the governor from what he's allowed to do. It restricts the regulatory agencies. It restricts the employees of those agencies as well from even picking up the phone and doing any kind of an investigation on some of these providers. And it also has the definition of the reproductive health care, quote unquote, and really expands, in my opinion, some nefarious opportunities for practitioners.
What are some of the dangers that would come with the passing of SB 131?
Well, the main thing that really caught my attention on it, okay, the first sentence in the bill itself, the language in it says, healthcare licensing board shall not disqualify a person from licensure or subject any person to disciplinary solely for providing or assisting in the provisions of reproductive health care services. And it expands onto that a little bit. So the boards of health, when they have the laws to allow practitioners to come here, there's certain reciprocity
what does
investigations.
That mean? Break it down.
Recognizing another state's license to come here.
Okay.
Now, I used to work for the health division years ago. I used to work for the health district here, and we took reciprocity from other states for licensing or permitting EMTs and paramedics to come here. But we could always pick up the phone and call that state's agency and say, hey, does this person have any disciplinary action, anything we should know about?
Sure.
And if they did,
Try
we
to
would
vet them a little.
send the applicant back and resolve it at that state first before they came here. This bill prohibits us from doing that.
I see.
And starts
Have you
off
ever seen that before?
the prohibition. No, never.
So not on anything
Reciprocity,
else?
yes, we've seen reciprocity. We do need to have reciprocity from other states, yes,
Sure.
because we have shortages here for all providers, doctors, nurses, EMTs, paramedics, various licensing agencies. We need to have provisions for reciprocity. This bill restricts that hugely. So it restricts the boards of health from even adopting regulations for that. The second part of it restricts the governor. So again, there's three parts to it. One's the boards, one's the governors, and the agencies. But the governor, the language on that says that the governor shall not surrender or issue a warrant pursuant to the NRS for arrest of any person in this state who is charged in another state with a criminal violation of the laws of that other state. Thus, extradition. So the governor can't sign an extradition warrant. So say Texas or Arkansas, just grab a state, wants to extradite a practitioner from Nevada back to their state for prosecution, something they did back there years ago,
Sure.
perhaps, the governor can't do it.
Wow.
And then the next part
And
is,
all this is covered under one bill.
yes.
Wow. Okay.
The next part is for the agency, and this is the kicker for me because I was one of those employees. And the exception is by court order, but it says a state agency shall not provide any information or expend any use of time, money, facilities, property, equipment, personnel, or any other resources in furtherance of any investigation or proceeding initiated in or by another state that seeks to impose civil or criminal liability. So can't even pose the question. That comment of picking up the phone and calling that agency,
Wow.
can't do it because that's using a resource. So going back to the board and the reciprocity, yes, we need to be able to accept reciprocity applicants, but we also need to be able to vet them. So just the fact that they might maybe have some sort of reproductive health care violation in
Sure.
another state can't even pose the question.
Wow.
So the bill kind of conflicts itself in that regard. And also the constitutionality of states recognizing other states. Article 4 of the Constitution says that each state shall recognize and honor the other state's laws and
Sure.
judicial orders. So to say now that Nevada can't do that, and also the separation of powers between the governor and the legislative branch. Now you've got the legislative branch mandating what the governor can and can't do with his extradition warrants.
Sure.
That violates as well the Constitution. So there's Constitution issues, there's agency vetting issues. The fourth part of it is the definition, which is in all three sections about reproductive health care services. And it's a very long paragraph, but it talks about doing surgical services and medical services, counseling, etc., and to include abortion and other procedures. It talked about by a competent medical professional. Well, what is a competent medical professional? It's not defined in here.
Sure.
The other part of this bill is there's no age requirement. And Nevada already has a restriction on parental notification or parental involvement.
That's
So now you open it up for the human trafficking aspect of it. And so you've got a trafficker perhaps in Texas or another state that is trafficking a 10-year-old who gets pregnant. Well, now they can come to Nevada and get their abortion over their holiday weekend that Planned Parenthood is already advertising for, and get the abortion and then enter them back into the sex trafficking business. So with no questions asked, because they're prohibited from asking questions.
Wow.
So there's much of that. This also, that last part of it in the definitions, would then set up for the swap meet practitioners, if you will, that set up their booth down there and do their abortions, do their trafficking, etc. We've already had issues. One case in point that I'm familiar with is there was a practitioner set up at the swap meet providing dentistry care. So in a booth there, was subsequently, I believe she was arrested for practicing without a license, but it was happening there. So the same thing could happen. It just opens it up.
Of course.
And so those are the four main components of the bill that I have heartache with personally, that as a former regulator and trying to make sense of the bill as it's moving forward.
Wow.
So I see what I am picking up from this is it sounds like they are trying to really equip Nevada to not only become an abortion sanctuary like California has done, but they're getting ready for the huge on-demand abortion, which is what California did as well. And that really upset me when all that happened. I'm sure there was an outpour of just righteous anger coming from those that live in California and all of us pro-life community that's watching it happen. And so there's some steps that we can take, right? How can we get involved? How can we get active in this? Celeste, you were there as well. You went to protest SB 131. What are some of the points that you made?
Well, I went back to the Constitution, actually the Nevada Constitution. I went back to the bill that was just put into effect in November about the equality of rights. And it specifically mentions in that bill age. So I wanted to go before the members of the committee and letting them know about this bill and how where it is undeniable, it's a fact and biologically undeniable that life begins at the moment of conception. And so if they're talking about age in this equality of rights bill that they just put in, well, there's an age that starts in the womb. So that's a breach of the Nevada Constitution right there. Also, too, of course, in our in the life and liberty as well in our Nevada Constitution. So I wanted to bring it back to the baby in this, because there's talk with the woman and the abortionist and the medical, but I wanted to make it a point about the baby and being able to speak for them as well. So that was my biggest thing as these magistrates that we're going up against realize, why they're actually in office to begin with, and it's to bring justice to the innocent and to establish justice in our state.
Well, if you are just joining in, we are talking with Kelly Quinn and Celeste Parks about the SB 131 bill that is being proposed in order to protect abortionists and this Fight for Life. And so we are here on Fight for Life Radio. If you'd like to join the conversation, please call us 702-731-5588 or 702-650-5588 to join the conversation. You can also watch us live at kkvv.com. Kelly, what are some of the ways that we can get plugged in and get active?
So right now, this bill, where it's at, is in Commerce and Labor. Mm-hmm. So it's already had the one hearing on it. When
did they have this hearing? They had it on President's Day, right?
Right.
So, who was going to know to go there? How do we find out when they're going to hear bills like this and hear bills that pique our interest?
Well, people really need to be involved and look at the legislation that's going through. One of the best sites I've found for it is the legislative website itself, which is leg.state.nv.us. And I'll repeat that again here in a minute. But when you get in there, you can search all the BDRs. Right now, there's over 1,000 of them. Mm-hmm. And you can keyword search them to whatever might interest you, whatever your profession is, etc. And I was looking just this morning about healthcare. Mm-hmm. It doesn't mention anything about abortion in it, but health, when you search health, there was 108 bills right now for health. Mm-hmm. And even this bill is listed as revises provisions related to the health of women or something like that effect.
Well, that's because the left side is trying to pass abortion as health care, whether it be for life of mother, and they can even have that fall under mental health. And so they are trying to claim that to be health care to kill your baby, but we all know that it would only bring further health damage to that woman by going through with an abortion and killing her child, having that guilt and shame on her for the rest of her life. And we know that it's not actually health care, because health care would equal that there is health involved, and death does not equal health.
Yeah. So as you get into that, though, and then you look at the BDRs, or the bill draft request numbers, And once the text is actually written for the bill itself, they'll put a link by the number, and it becomes an assembly bill or a Senate bill at that point. And then you can actually go in and see the actual text of the bill and find out what it's really about. So to get there, if you go to leg.state.nv.us, and there's a link on there for the Nevada Electronic Legislative Information System, or NELIS. And I encourage as many people as I can to sign up for that. And you just have to give them your name and an email, and they'll give you updates when that bill is read onto the floor, when it's sent to the committee. You'll get updates of committee hearings as it comes about, and you can track it all the way through. And for no cost, you can track up to 10 bills on this site. If you want more, if you're a lobbyist or whatever, you can pay for more, but you can get, any citizen can get 10 bills they can track free of charge.
Okay.
So do that,
Great.
please. Also on that section, each bill as it's coming forward, there's a link on the bottom that you can click on and provide comments, and that becomes part of the record then. Now, that's probably the easiest way of providing comment, but also on the legislative website, on the right-hand side of the page, you can look up and see who your representatives are.
Okay.
Each one of us have 2 representatives, one on the Senate side, one on the Assembly side. So everybody in the state of Nevada has 2 reps. So we should know who those are. So on the right-hand side, there's a link to look up your legislator, or what's my district, who's my legislator. You put in your address, and it'll tell you who your Senate representative is and your Assembly representative. Now, those are the ones representing you and your districts, both Senate and Assembly district. But you can contact anybody. And like this committee here, it's I believe it's a 5-3 committee, 5 Democrats, 3 Republicans, so 8-person committee. You can contact every one of them. And I've been in contact with a few of them myself. But if we especially focus on the Democrat representatives, then and tell them that there's a lot of opposition to this and why, you can write an individual email. So when you go to that Who's My Legislator link, you can look and get a whole list, and it has their contact email, their contact phone numbers, etc. Pick up the phone, go get a cup of coffee with them or something.
Sure.
And let them know your views on this bill, on any others.
Do you feel like that does anything? Does it carry any weight?
Absolutely. Yes.
It does? Okay.
It does. When I lived in Carson City for 3.5 years. I worked legislative sessions, actually talking to legislators on different bills moving forward, mostly regarding healthcare and emergency medical services. But yes, an email counts for so many of the constituency. A face-to-face conversation counts for so many of the constituencies. A written letter. But yes, it matters. And people need to step up and get involved. And when this hearing that just happened on Monday, we need to pack those committee rooms.
Yeah.
And not everybody's going to be able to speak, as we saw.
And I feel like a big obstacle in the way is people just not being aware.
Yes, absolutely. If we can just show up and occupy a seat so they know that they're being held accountable, then great. And by the same token, on the other side, we need to support the candidates, like our own representatives. Senator Stone, I've talked to him about on this bill particularly, wanting to know how his position is on it. He's voting against it. And but if we can influence at least 2 other people, because we've got the 3 Republican candidates, if we can influence at least 2 of those other ones, it'll die in that committee right there. If it's a negative vote. So, but say it does pass this committee, now it goes back to the floor, or Senator Stone requested it to be referred to Health and Human Services as well, which it probably should be. So then it would be referred to that committee, and the same process happens over again. Eventually, it'll make it back to the Assembly or the Senate floor, and then the floor has to vote on it for everybody. Right now, it's just the committee voting on it, but it'll go back to the floor. If it passes there, then it'll go to the Assembly side. Same thing happens there, goes to the committees, come back to the floor. Then, if it passes all of that, it'll get to Governor Lombardo, and Lombardo will have the opportunity to either sign it, veto it, or do nothing. Wow. And I am hopeful that he would veto it. If he does veto it, the Assembly will override that veto because they have the votes. However, the Senate side does not have the votes to override the governor's vetoes. So that's where the governor's power really comes in to this,
So,
is being supported by the Senate.
so we found an article that the Las Vegas Review-Journal published, correct? And there was some comments on there from Joe Lombardo, our new governor. Can you talk into that a little bit?
Yeah, so I believe it was a couple days ago that this article came out, but it is on the Las Vegas Review-Journal website. And it was just stating that Governor Lombardo is willing to sign a clean version of SB 131. So we're hopeful, just like Mr. Quinn was saying, that actually Governor Lombardo will veto this bill entirely and will not sign a clean version of that. So,
So
whatever
contact
version.
him.
Yes. So
Give them a call,
the
people.
most important thing, just like Mr. Quinn said, is for us to start getting into this realm of contacting our local leaders, our local magistrates, what's going on. So
Future generations depend on it.
yes, absolutely. This is where it's going.
Wow. So there is a few things that, Celeste, you have prayer requests, specifically, listeners, if you are going to be fighting on your knees in prayer, we ask that you specifically pray for these things. Celeste, can you go over that?
So as we just mentioned about Governor Lombardo, we are just praying that he will veto this bill and that enough of our legislators will not vote to override his hoped for veto so that the bill will die for this session. Our second prayer, and these are very specific prayers. Our next one is to pray about any family oriented with the Nevada legislator will write and sponsor a bill to require parental consent to obtain an abortion as a minor. Right now, under the age of 16, a minor needs parental consent to obtain a root canal, but not an abortion. So there was something said in the hearing about being compared, abortion being compared to a root canal. So it was very disturbing knowing that this is the mindset that we're dealing with, and how we are making a similarity between a bacteria, a cavity in a tooth, to the dismembering of a child, of a human being. So this is very disturbing of where their minds are at. And so the next prayer I would definitely request is someone close to the governor to speak on behalf of the young girls that will be trafficked to Las Vegas for the abortions completely outside of the parental support. So these are very specific prayers, and if you could just lift this all up.
It feeds right into the sex trafficking industry, which is something that he personally fought for a long time as sheriff.
Yep.
So
It's a big issue in Nevada. We're second only to Texas in
Wow.
human trafficking. And this just opens it wide open to protect those criminals doing that.
Wow, that's crazy. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Kelly. I'm going to share a story out of First Choice. Fight for Life. This is just one of our platforms that we use, but we're here to share the stories that happen out of First Choice Pregnancy Services, where we are literally on the front lines of the battle, fighting for unborn lives and the support of their mothers and helping them to choose life for their babies. So one of the stories I want to talk about today is hitting the pause button. I only have a short period of time, so let me try to wrap this all up. Hitting the pause button, it was something that my adult daughter and I kind of came up with whenever she came back to live with me as an adult. And, now we're talking about two adults, and there can be a little bit of clashing of personalities and character. And so we, in order to peacefully be able to live under the same roof, we said, okay, we need to come up with something that allows us to just hit the pause button and be able to, say, I've had enough. We're hitting the pause button. We can come back and think about this and come back to it another time. And so we said, we're just going to hit that pause button. Whenever friction started to happen, we say, hitting the pause button, and we would come back to that problem another time. Well, we had a woman that came in from another state thinking that she was there at First Choice for an abortion. She stated that she was not ready for a baby and that she and her boyfriend had already come to an agreement they were going to be having an abortion, and that it was just tissue anyways. Isn't that the agenda that the left side is pushing on the world right now? So her sonographer actually started educating her about babies and the developmental stages. And when the woman saw her 8-week baby and heard the baby's heartbeat on the ultrasound, she actually got scared, because now she's being confronted with reality as opposed to what she's been told and taught, which is a complete opposite as to what she's seeing on the screen right in front of her, right? So the sonographer also showed her the baby model, and she ended up choosing life and having that pause button to hit. So we thank you so much for listening, everybody, today, and thank you. We'll see you next week. Thanks for joining your ambassadors for the unborn on the Fight for Life radio, today and every Thursday on KKVV 1060 AM, the best news radio, the gospel airship.
If you'd like to support the cause of saving unborn babies, or if you have a question you'd like us to answer on the air, go to fcpsfriends.org or call us at 702-294-CARE. Again, that number is 702-294-2273.
On behalf of his little ones, thank you and God bless.
From the Salvation Army,